I really like R&B. It's just something I wanted to make a video about how much I like R&B. Probably my favorite R&B artist of all time is Peabo Bryson. He was one of the biggest artists in the '80s, um, maybe early '90s too, '80s, early '90s, and then um, yeah. So just he means a lot to me, um, especially as someone who grew up watching Aladdin a lot. His song was always on the end credits of Aladdin. Him and Regina Bell, is that her name? Regina Bell. I'm more of a Peebo Bryson fan than Regina Bell, but I like both of them. Anyways, so Peebo Bryson was one of the biggest R&B artists in the '80s. Another big one was New Edition, and I thought New Edition was amazing too. I thought Michael Jackson was a bit overrated. I like Michael Jackson, but I'm not a huge Michael Jackson fan. Um, in the '90s, R. Kelly was probably the biggest R&B artist. I like R. Kelly, um, even though I think he's a terrible person. I like his music anyway. In the 2000s, Beyonce, Rihanna, and Usher were probably the three biggest R&B artists. I, lo- I like Rihanna and Beyonce. I'm not an Usher fan. I think Usher is really overrated. I will say that about R&B. Think some people like Usher are just really overrated. They used to play Usher all the time when I was in middle school and I don't know. I guess early high school, or I guess I don't think he sounds good. I don't think Usher sounds good. I know he can dance and stuff. I don't think he sounds good. Um, he just sounds sleazy, to be honest. To me, Usher has always sounded sleazy. I guess some people like that sleazy sound. Good for them. I don't. Um, and then again, I'm pretty sleazy myself, so I don't know what to say. But and then um, in the 2010s, the biggest R&B artists were Beyonce, Rihanna, and Chris Brown. So basically, Beyonce and Rihanna were still on top in the 2010s, but Usher was replaced by Chris Brown. Though Usher did have one hit, one big hit I remember. What was it? You can't find love in the club, and I believe that. I believe you can't find love in the club. It might be a stupid thing to believe, but I believe that you can't find love in the club. But that was an Usher. That was the biggest Usher song I remember from the 2010s. Anyway, I'm sure he had other hits, but um, like Body Language, I guess was Usher's song, and Kid Ink. Kid Ink was another one. But anyways, about Chris Brown. Chris Brown was really big in the 2010s. He was big in the 2000s, but he's also, I think every year he had like a huge hit in the 2010s. Every single year there was something on the radio. I was like, oh, that's this year's Chris Brown song. Maybe he had a few every year. You know, he had so many. Chris Brown had so many hits in the 2010s, and I guess sometimes he still has hits in the 2020s. It's not sometimes, but in the 2010s, he's had hit after hit after hit, and he just never stopped. Um, Even though he's also probably not the probably not the best person because he hit Rihanna, so I think he's a bad person for that. So personally, he might be a bad person, but he makes great music and he can dance. And his music videos, I think, are just as good as his songs. If you ever watch his music videos on YouTube, or on whatever you watch, MTV, wherever you watch it. But and then uh, what was else? And then nowadays in the 2020s, The Weeknd is the biggest R&B artist. The Weeknd is the biggest R&B artist. I would say Bruno Mars is a big R&B artist, but I don't think Bruno Mars is black. I mean, is he black? I don't know. He seems like he's mixed or something. I, I don't want to define labels, but I don't know if Bruno Mars is R&B or just pop. But anyways, I know Bruno Mars is debatably R&B. Yes, and yeah, I think he's R&B. He's sort of R&B, but some people, I know some people gatekeep. Oh, he's not like really R&B. He's just pop. So it depends how you label. But Bruno Mars and The Weeknd are the two biggest R&B artists today. I haven't heard any Rihanna albums recently. I didn't think I've heard that many Beyonce albums recently. I should probably check it out. But I haven't heard any Rihanna stuff lately. So I think she's just relaxing. I think she made enough money anyway. But she's Rihanna's one of those people. She could make money whenever she wants because people adore her. She's really great. one of the things I really like about Rihanna is she made like R&B pop again, whereas like Beyonce was like I don't think Beyonce made pop music. She was really focused on R&B. You know what I mean by Beyonce didn't make pop music, right? I don't think they play Beyonce songs on a lot of mainstream radio stations. They would play them on the hip hop and R&B stations, if even that. But pe- people who adored Beyonce bought her albums or listened to her online. They don't, but But anyway, so those are some of the things I know about R&B. But my favorite R&B artist is Peebo Bryson. Another thing about R&B is there's like two shifts. Well, there's the R&B artists who focus on love, and there's the R&B artists who focus on sex. Like Jodishi focuses on sex, and whereas the alternative to Jodishi would be Mint Condition, whereas Mint Condition would focus on love. Or maybe New Edition. I don't know if I'm talking about New Edition or Mint Condition. I need to look those up. Do they focus on love? But the way they sing and the way their voices go up and down, it makes it sound like they're more thinking about love. Whereas Jodishi, the way he sings, it makes him sound like he's more thinking about sex. So those are different. And love and sex are the same thing, but they're also a little bit different things, just a little bit different. So some artists focus more on sex, some artists focus more on love. Um, and then, so there's lots of different kinds of R&B. One of the interesting things about R&B, also Boyz II Men, did I say? Yeah, Boyz II Men was also like the biggest R&B artist of the 90s, along with R. Kelly. Well, they were really big for like, I want to say 4 years, from like 1991 to like 1995. They were huge, and then they really fell off the map. They really fell off the map. And like, I guess Bone Thugs and Harmony replaced them, but I'm not a huge Bone Thugs and Harmony fan. I know a lot of people my generation, my age, love Bone Thugs and Harmony. I'm just not a huge fan of them. They're okay. They're okay. I like them, but they're not. They don't blow my mind. Like most people my age love Bone Thugs and Harmony. I think they're okay. Whatever. I thought Boyz II Men were a lot better, but anyways. So one thing to understand about R&B is once a sound comes to R&B, it reaches the mainstream sound. It's either pop immediately, like Michael Jackson was pop immediately as soon as he started doing R&B, or you have like people like Boyz II Men, which Boyz II Men was pop immediately, but really the Boyz II Men came to their sound almost really dominated the charts once. I mean, they did dominate the charts. Don't get me wrong, but it was even more dominated when Backstreet Boys and NSYNC copied them, and copied a New Edition and Mint Condition and Boyz II Men. The Backstreet Boys and NSYNC copied them, and it almost became a lot bigger because. So the point I'm trying to make is when something's big in R&B, a lot of times a year or two or a couple of years or 10 or 20 years later, it becomes big in the mainstream pop section. There's other examples of this too. Like I don't know, it just like like another example of the what's that guy's name? Oh, he's really old. He passed away, I think. He passed away. The first real R&B artist, or one of the first real R&B artists. Oh, I forgot his name. He was blind. Not Stevie Wonder. Not Stevie Wonder. I mean, oh, the guy who should really edit this video out. Georgia on My Mind. The guy saying Georgia on My Mind. But that wasn't an R&B song. That was a ballad. Anyways, they made a movie about him starring Jamie Foxx. You know who I mean. The movie. Sorry, my mind's gone blank. I know I should remember his name, but the movie where they star Jamie Foxx. Anyways, sorry, I know it's an insult to not remember this guy, but it was 30 years before I was born, so granted. Anyways, so the music he made, if you listen to it, it sounds exactly what people in like a bunch of white people like the Bee Gees in the 70s sounded like they were imitating him. And a lot of times when somebody comes up with the sound, a lot of white people start imitating it a certain number of years later, like the Backstreet Boys imitated Boyz II Men or whatever. And a lot of times when something comes to R&B, it's copied a certain number of years later. Sometimes it's not quick. And like Kenny Rogers copied the guy that I was talking about, but not that Kenny Rogers is that big. But I mean, the Bee Gees were big and they copied him. Sorry, I can't remember his name. I feel bad. Anyways, so when R&B creates a sound, it comes to the mainstream a few years. If it's not already in the mainstream immediately, sometimes it's immediately in the mainstream. Sometimes it takes a number of years to get there. And a lot of guys like the Rolling Stones. They were copying blues songs from the 30s and the 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Their entire career, they just made blues songs in the 50s. And obviously, what R&B stands for is rhythm and blues. So, blues really first recorded in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and God, I can't remember the guy's name. And really, and there's a number of people who like added more rhythm to it to create R&B. Again, the guy, I can't remember his name. He was like the first real R&B artist, because he took the blues, but he made a rhythm to it, and he added more to it than that. It wasn't just, oh, woe is me, whereas like the Rolling Stones were just copied the oh, woe is me sound, but they didn't have the rhythm. I don't think Rolling Stones had rhythm. I think they had the blues down. They nailed the blues, they didn't have the rhythm. Whereas like Hall & Oates tried to copy the whole rhythm and blues thing, and Hall & Oates really sounded a lot like an R&B band, even though they're white. But Hall & Oates really tried to copy that R&B sound, and it was what Hall & Oates did was, let's take what Marvin Gaye is doing, and we're gonna try to sound as much like Marvin Gaye as we can. We're gonna sound as much like Marvin Gaye as we can. We're gonna sound, and you had, and there's some artists who aren't influenced by R&B. I mean, a lot of artists are influenced. I don't say all of them, but a lot of artists are influenced by R&B. But you have like people like the Pet Shop Boys who are influenced by Julie Andrews. Julie Andrews is a completely different school of music. That's not R&B. But the Pet Shop Boys were influenced by Julie Andrews. And if you think about it, the Pet Shop Boys do sound like Julie Andrews. If you listen to them, they do sound like Julie Andrews. So R&B. I really like R&B because there's a lot of soul, I guess I'd say, in R&B. A lot of soul. Even though soul music is generally regarded as like Christian music, you don't need, in my humble opinion, I don't think you need to be Christian to make soul music, to sound like you're but then again, soul is the inverse of blues. Blues is I'm depressed, woe is me, and soul is things are getting better. Soul is things can only get better, whereas blues is woe is me. I prefer soul over blues, so I prefer the more rhythm in the rhythm and blues section. I prefer the rhythm, like New Edition. Okay, New Edition was more about the rhythm than the blues, and that's why I like New Edition a lot, because they had the rhythm down pat. Whereas some artists focus more on the blues, like what's that guy's name? D'Angelo. Like D'Angelo sound like he focused more on the blues than the rhythm. That just to me sounded like more. And then there's funk, right? Which funk is a variant of R&B. Funk was big in the 70s, maybe at the end of the 60s into all the 70s. Funk was really big. Funk was really big in R&B, and then disco disco came in the late 70s. Was another type of R&B. Though granted, most disco artists, half of disco artists were white. They weren't R&B. The Bee Gees weren't R&B, but like Donna Summer and stuff was R&B, even though she's making disco. So R&B was like disco in the late 70s, funk through a lot of the 70s. And then in the 80s, it turned into like Billy Ocean, synth pop. Billy Ocean synth pop was like R&B. Peebo Bryson synth pop was like R&B. And then in the 90s, it turned into more toned down sound of like, well, it wasn't really toned down, but it was more about the, with Boyz II Men, it was more about the, what do you call it, the vocals. It was all about the vocals, and it was all about, like Whitney Houston was all about the vocals. It was all about, can you hit these notes? Do you have the melody down? It almost wasn't about the background instruments. It was about the, can you, do you have the rhythm to hit these notes? And what's the word for Boyz II Men? That boy bands, melody. I don't know what the word is, but unison, is unison the word I'm looking for? Anyways, so in the 80s and 90s, boy bands got really big in R&B with New Edition, Mint Condition, Boyz II Men. That was the big type of R&B in the 80s and 90s. And then in the 2000s, you had like these like solo stars. You had like Beyonce, and like millions of people go to Beyonce concerts. Rihanna, millions of people go to Rihanna concerts. Usher, millions of people go to Usher concerts. And you have these individual stars who dominated starting in the 2000s. Like take Chris Brown. From like 2006 till today, Chris Brown has dominated a lot of the music videos. In my opinion, all the biggest and best music videos have been Chris Brown. And you have these individual people who have dominated music videos. Because why does Chris Brown dominate music video? Because he dances better than everyone else, and he can sing probably better than anyone else can too. But it's specifically his dancing in his music videos that really push it over the top, because people want to see that really good dancing. People want to see that high budget music video, that special effects. It looks like it's some like Blade or some like vampire movie or something. They want to see that special effects in the music video that Chris Brown can bring to it. Michael Jackson did the exact same thing. Michael Jackson did the same thing in music videos, but Chris Brown is following Michael Jackson's footsteps in the sense that he's mastering the music video. And I believe Chris Brown's dancing is better than his singing, but I still think his singing is really good. So then today you have Bruno Mars taking the sound back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s. He's trying to bring the soul. I think Bruno Mars is trying to bring the soul back into R&B, even though R&B isn't totally soul. Bruno Mars is, what was that song? Anyways, in 2018 he had an album that sounded like it was from like 1991. Okay, he had a album that sounded like he was trying to be like one of those boy bands in the early 90s that was like copying New Edition, like Mint Condition or something. Like Bruno Mars sounded like he came out with a Mint Condition album a couple years ago, and then now he did Bruno Mars' album drop yet? I forgot. I know he had 2 songs that dropped, but in Bruno Mars' latest sound, he's trying to sound like a 70s soul singer, like the Philly 70s soul music, which is a different type of R&B. The 70s R&B, which was like a little bit of funk, a little bit of blues, and a little bit of rhythm. But it's the 70s, like Bruno Mars is trying to bring that 70s sound back now, whereas maybe 3 years ago he was trying to bring that like In Living Color sound back. He was trying to make like In Living Color music video and look like it was like Jennifer Lopez dancing out there. But with the big beats, Bruno Mars is trying to bring the big beats back to R&B, which is really exciting. I like the big beats. I know a lot of people aren't into the beats. They like the small beats, the titter tatter, the ba 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 ba. I like the boom boom. I like the big beats, but anyways, so I'm not a huge Usher fan. And Usher, I think, is the only overrated R&B artist I can think of. I like Usher. I just think he's overrated. I think his sex appeal was his strongest attribute. I think his attractiveness was what drove him to the top of the charts. And I don't even think his dancing was that good. Chris Brown is way better dancing than Usher. He's way better than Usher. So I don't even think Usher had good dancing for the time until Chris Brown usurped Usher's dancing, because Chris Brown is more talented than Usher, obviously. Is there anything else to say about R&B? I think Peebo Bryson is the greatest R&B artist of all time. Maybe New Edition coming in second place. And that's about it. And Mint Condition is also Mint Condition is also tied for second place, even though most people don't know who Mint Condition is. Mint Condition is the one artist you should look up, because if you like R&B, you should look up Mint Condition, because you've heard of New Edition, but have you heard of Mint Condition? Because Mint Condition was copying New Edition, but they did it probably a little bit better. A lot of their songs are a little bit better than New Edition songs, because I don't know who was making their beats, but they're really good people making beats, and they just did it really well. Mint Condition kind of mastered the R&B sound. But anyways, obviously, if I like Mint Condition, New Edition, People Artists, that means I like 80s R&B more than any other type of R&B. That's true. I do like 80s R&B the best. I kind of think it went downhill after that, but that's okay. That's just my opinion. I still like today's R&B. I still like Bruno Mars. I still like Chris Brown. I still like Rihanna, even though Rihanna doesn't make anything anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, I like Doja Cat. Doja Cat's another good one today. I don't think she's that great, but I think she's good. I think she should have won Album of the Year last year, but she was as stolen or whatever. I don't think she was nominated, but anyways, Doja Cat had the best album last year. But anyways, that's it. Let me know in the comments below. Do you like R&B? What do you think of R&B? Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe to this channel to be part of the community, and please like the video. It really helps out the channel a lot. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.